welcome to another bike review out of Appleyards in Keighley, and at long last today it's my great pleasure to be taking out this year's CF Moto 800 MT. So let's climb aboard and see what all the fuss is about. In the meantime, if you're in this neck of the woods, get yourself round to Appleyards in Keighley. Stacks of stock, new and used, plenty of demonstrators, Royal Enfields, CF Motos and many other mainstream brands as well. Get yourself up to Appleyards in Keighley. Alright, let's climb aboard and see if the CF Moto 800 MT cuts the mustard. Right, okay, here we are aboard the CF Moto 800 MT, and we'll just see what this bike is like in traffic here in the middle of a busy Otley. And there's two throttle modes, sport and rain, and it's in sport because it's not raining. Hey, yet. And it takes a little bit of getting used to, a little bit snatchy. Now, I am familiar with this engine because I had a KTM 890 Adventure for quite a while. I owned one. And whereas that was the 890 engine, this is a 790 engine, so this one not quite as powerful, and of course this bike a bit heavier. So it's not, it's a very responsive bike. It's quick, it doesn't disappoint. It doesn't quite have the blistering take-up of the KTM 890 Adventure, but it's still very, very good indeed. 105 brake horsepower, plenty. For a midweight adventure bike. So you can see the old TFT in the front there, very, very clear indeed. And on the left we've got the engine temperature, and you can see I've got the heated grips on. Now I had, or rather I didn't have, but when I set off from Appleyards the bike had its heated seat on full, and I couldn't work out how to turn it off, and by the time I got into Otley from Keighley, I'm telling you, my arse was that hot, you could have lit a cig off it. But anyway, I've just worked out, hey, in Sainsbury's car park there, how this here TFT works. So I've managed to get it in miles per hour because it were in kilometres per hour. I've managed to turn off the heated seat, and I managed to turn on the heated grips. But we'll go through that later. You'll just have to excuse this because it came undone just as I left Appleyards, and that's the only position in which it's secure. So I'm going to have to do without a near side mirror. We'll cope. Yeah, fueling's fine, you just need to get used to this here fly-by-wire throttle. It's just like a little bit snatchy, but it's not something you couldn't overcome with a little bit of practice. I don't think it's got any inherent flaws in that department. The fueling's fine. There's a little bit of sort of capriciousness in low revs, which is a characteristic of the engine, but it's by no means a showstopper. I'm being very, very picky indeed, as you would expect me to be. So fine. Riding position, typical adventure bike riding position, nice and upright, nice and sort of angular at the arms and hips and knees, sort of 90-degree territory. And I suppose, I mean, the rivals for this bike, I mean, this bike in this form, this being the slightly more off-road focused version with the spoked wheels. In this form, £9,500, and with the luggage, I'm told, £10,500. But at Appleyards, you can get the sport version of this, which I happen to think is a better looking bike. You can get the sport version of this complete with a set of luggage, because it's the 2022 model, but it's brand new. Complete with a full set of luggage, £8,500. £8,500 for a competent mid-weight adventure bike, complete with crash bars and a full set of rigid luggage. That's pretty good. You might want to check that out if you're after one of these. So yeah, sorry, I was talking about the TFT. So as you can see on the left, we've got engine temperature, and where it says sport there, that's the throttle setting, the other one being rain. You can see the grip indicator there. It's a 3-stage grip heater. This is on number 2. In the centre there, you've got a digital readout of speed, surrounded by the rev counter. And on the right hand side, you've got your gear indicator and your fuel level indicator, and at the top you've got your trip display on the left, your outside temperature on the right, and the time on the right. But all fairly well laid out, I'd have to say. Suspension is very, very good indeed. It's adjustable up front there, as you may be able to see. 3-way adjustable at front and adjustable for preload at the rear. Now the thing that I first noticed about this engine, even though it's a good bit more brake horsepower than say there's the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE, is to explore its full potential you need to work it. Now the thing with the V-Strom is that the mapping is such that there is bags of usable torque in the low to mid range. So you could be in sort of 4th, 5th gear, wind the throttle back, and you're still taking off. That's less so the case with this engine. You might find yourself in some situations where you need to drop a gear to really get a turn of speed. But once you get higher in the rev range, it's an absolute flying machine. Make no mistake about that. Loads and loads and loads of real world power. It just happens, if you like, at a slightly different place in the rev range than certainly the Suzuki. And I suppose other than the Suzuki 800 V-Strom, the obvious sort of competitor for this bike would be the Honda Transalp. And I suppose the KTM 890 Adventure or the 790 Adventure themselves. Husqvarna Norden 901, a lot more expensive than this, particularly the Expedition model. And worth noting at this point, of course, that CF Moto, yes, a Chinese company, but one which is working in active collaboration with KTM. And in fact, thank you, there we go. Oh yes, whoa, yeah, once you get the revs up, really flies. Yeah, CF Moto in active collaboration with KTM, and in fact it's the CF Moto factory in China that makes the KTM 790 Adventure. I think the 890 Adventure is still made in Austria. So there's obviously an active collaboration ongoing between KTM and CF Moto, which should give you a degree of confidence, as should the fact that this bike comes with a 4-year, yes, a 4-year warranty. Now then, how many people keep a bike for more than 4 years. I mean, PCP, it's normally 3 years, isn't it? So if you had any concerns about a Chinese bike, and I think a lot of those concerns are largely unwarranted, they're born of perceptions around different issues really. But even so, if you've got a 4-year warranty and you would normally only keep a bike for say 3 years, what's not to like? Right, see how she performs here. Yeah. Oh, you really do not need any more power from an adventure bike. So yeah, handles superbly on the bends, proper turn of speed, lots of comfort from this suspension. A very stylish looking bike, I think. We'll obviously do the walk around on the numbers at some point. Lovely light clutch, brakes, pretty good brakes. Certainly when you throw the anchors out, there's no sense that more is required. No sense of that at all. So all good. But so comfortable. Yeah, I could get on with this bike long term absolutely fine. I do love the look of it. I love the look of these bikes, these CF Motos. I think they've actually got the design cock on. And to me, the only better looking adventure bike than this would be the Husqvarna Norden 901, and particularly the Expedition model, which is a sort of similar colour to this. But that's going to cost you 14.5 grand, and probably a good bit more than that with luggage. Whereas this one, as I say, with luggage, round about the 10.5 mark. And there is a fully equipped top of the range jobby, which has absolutely everything. And that, I'm told, is at the £12,000 mark. So the price point, the pricing sort of more or less in tune, spec for spec, like for like, with the Transalp from Honda and the V-Strom 800 DE from Suzuki, more or less. But I actually think, much as I love, as you know, if you've watched my reviews, much as I absolutely love that Suzuki V-Strom 800 DE, I think this is actually better looking. It's a better looking bike than the Suzuki. I'm not saying it's a better bike than the Suzuki, but it's certainly a better looking bike than the Suzuki, to my eye. Very modern looking adventure bike. This sort of reminds me of the way that the new Triumph Tigers present themselves. But yeah, on these tight bends on Nadgery road surfaces, it's dispatching them with consummate ease and no fuss whatsoever. Now I suppose what you've got to do, and I don't want to annoy anybody, I seem to have acquired a richly undeserved reputation in some quarters for dissing GS riders. I had a BMW R1200 GS Adventure for 5 years. I had that bike longer than I've had most bikes, and I loved it to bits, although that was a 2009 model, one of the older air and oil head jobbies. So no, I don't have any latent or lingering negative perceptions about anybody that rides a GS, because I used to ride one myself and really enjoyed it. And I suppose, so speaking of GSs, the other, I suppose, a logical competitor to this would be the new BMW F900 GS. Well, that costs you a little bit more money. So yeah, but let's face up to it. 90% of these bikes never end up going off road, and are not really suited to proper off-road riding. Proper, competent, dedicated off-road people do not ride GS's and Africa Twins and V-Stroms and what have you, because they're all too big and too heavy. Because we all know that serious off-roaders ride smaller bikes with smaller engines, and that be the prevailing truth. So whereas, and I understand it, there's a degree of comfort to be had from knowing that the bike you're using for long distance touring would, if it came to stick and lift, be capable of negotiating some of the gnarly nadgery stuff as a shall we say, a bike to be used 50+% of the time off-road. Most serious people that would use a bike for that purpose, that are into that sort of thing, are not going to be using big heavy bikes like this and the BMWs and the big KTMs, etc, etc. So that'd be the truth, and that's always worth bearing in mind if you get into that game of comparing off-road capability amongst medium and heavyweight adventure bikes. It's a little bit of a false comparison, because none of them are capable of excelling in the off-road department due to the size and weight. Yeah, typical KTM engine, high up in the rev range or higher up in the rev range, an absolute flyer. Superb on the bends, very flickable. Yeah, so if you'd like to take one of these out for a test ride, this is the demonstrator, available at Apple Yards for you. Just drop them a line there, and you'll be able to take this very bike out. Right, here she is then, the CF Moto 800 MT, this the touring model. The other model is a sport model. This has a slightly more off-road focus, but take that terminology with a healthy dose of salt. But let's talk about first impressions and the looks of the bike, the aesthetics, and a very smart, modern looking adventure bike for sure. And just look at that front end there. That's pretty mean and purposeful, isn't it? and we have as standard, of course, the crash bars, and crash bars upper and lower, but all in one piece, if you see what I mean. Bash plate at the bottom, all this is standard on this particular model. We've got the spotlights there, okay, very subtly integrated into the overall design of the bike. A great looking LED headlight there. The screen here is adjustable, but manually so. I think it's just a pull up and push down job with both of these ear knobs. Currently in its lowest position, I would need to crank it up a bit because I was getting a bit of a facial buffeting, but yeah, it really looks the part, and resplendent in that silver and blue colour scheme with the gold wheels there. So overall impressions in terms of looks and design as good as any adventure bike, mid-range or otherwise, that you're going to come across. And I think, because there will be an inevitable comparison with the other bike I recently reviewed, which was the Benelli TRK 702, another very good looking bike, but I think this one here edges it. So let's just talk some numbers then, shall we? So we'll start at the rear, and it's a 17-inch wheel at the rear, 19-inch at the front, double-sided swing arm. We have a 2-pot caliper operating on a 240mm disc, and we're running spoked tubeless tyres here, and the tyres fitted to this are Ventura Max. Yeah, you either love or loathe gold wheels, don't you? But I think in terms of the overall presentation of the bike, they look pretty good on this one. So yeah, that's the back end of the bike. We've got standard single shock absorber suspension at the rear that is adjustable for preload and has 150mm of travel. Centre stand as standard, I'm pleased to say, and a 6-speed gearbox with quick shifter up and down, quick shifter and auto blipper. Now this engine is obviously the KTM engine from the 790 series. I think earlier I said it was 105 brake horsepower. No, that's the 890 engine. This 790 engine is 95 brake horsepower at 9,250 RPM. And 75 newton meters of torque at 8,000 RPM, which is a pretty healthy pair of figures indeed. It's a double overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, liquid cooled parallel twin engine, as I said, the KTM engine, and packs a punch. And if you really work that gearbox and get the revs up, there's stacks of power, particularly up to the sort of 75% range on the revs. So yeah, a tried and tested engine there. I'll just haul my frame back up off the deck. And as we said, yeah, crash bars are standard. And obviously the handguards are standard as well. It's a 19-litre fuel tank, so you should be good for 200 miles, depending on how you ride, and an 825mm seat height, but we'll look at me seated upon the bike shortly. So if we talk about the TFT then, it's a 7-inch TFT. Got a nice snazzy boot up sequence there, and we'll just fire her up there. A very, very typical KTM engine sound, I think it's fair to say. Let's have a look at the controls. We have cruise control on this bike, and the controls here are all on the left hand switch assembly. These two controls here take you through the various menus and settings on the TFT. There we have our indicator, which, as I said earlier, there's no click to it. It's like so, and like so, but there's no feedback whatsoever from that switch. Horn, spotlights on the right hand side standard, hazard warning lights, kill switch, starter. Let's have a look at the TFT. So on the left we've got the engine temperature, we've got the heated grips indicator, we've got 3-stage heated grips and a 3-stage heated seat on this bike. Here we have the throttle setting indicator. There are two settings, sport and rain, currently on sport. And analog type, rev counter, and in the centre a digital speed readout. A little legend there to confirm that the side stands down. On the right your gear position indicator, and to the right of that the fuel indicator. To navigate through the menu you press set, and to take you through the different settings, the telemetry and the functionality of the TFT, you press and hold the either the set button or the down button here. I can't remember which, but we'll find out soon enough, won't we? So first of all we've got information there, and if we arrow down, as see, we've got the TPMS tyre pressure monitoring system, 2 bar front, 2.3 bar rear, all good. Range to empty 77 miles. Temperature and the battery voltage there, all good. So arrow down and more information. We've got a trip 1, trip 2, the odometer and fuel consumption readings, and there's a warning light field, but there are no warnings in the bike currently. And then we've just got the software versions and some maintenance information there regarding servicing, etc. And back to the beginning. So if we press and hold the down, we get to the telephone setting, so you connect, you can Bluetooth your phone to this TFT. And also if we arrow down and hold again, navigation is off, but obviously this TFT will link with any navigation that you might have on your smartphone. Press and hold down again, and here we have the settings menu. So in your drive mode, if we press set, we get to switch between sport and rain. Set, now on rain, up, set, now on sport. Then this little back arrow here to take us back into the main menu. Then the handle grip heater set, and again up and down to plus up, 3, off, 1, 2. So 3 stage, back out again, seat heater again, set, 1, 2, 3 and off. 3 settings again. Then connections, and in here you'll have your communications and phone connections and what have you. So all fairly straightforward, even for a technophobe like me. Fairly straightforward there. Yeah, so a very, very comprehensive suite of electronics in this bike. Yeah, I'm impressed. So let's take a look at me seated upon the bike. Right, so I'm 6'1", 32 going on 33-inch inseam, about 85 kilos. I'm quite a tall chap, and The seat height on this bike is 825 millimeters, and as you can see, I'm nearly flat foot. Not quite, but nearly. 825 millimeters, so very, very manageable to indeed. No issues with slow speed manoeuvring, no sense of feeling precarious or unbalanced at any point whatsoever. And at 235 kilos, 235 kilos in weight on this bike, pretty manageable. I tend to think that my upper limit's about 220 to 240, so 235 right in the sweet zone here with this bike. And as you can see, the riding position is a typical adventure touring riding position. Not too much stretch at the arm, almost level, about 90 degrees at the leg, all day comfortable. Decent sized pillion seat, a rack that comes as standard, and yeah, if you're in the market for a midweight adventure bike and you're not wanting to spend a fortune, then this would have to be on your list of considerations. And although this is quote unquote the sort of more off-road focused bike, it's not an off-road bike. I could probably do on my little classic 350 off-road what this can do off-road. Let's be realistic about that and not kid ourselves that these big adventure tourers are anything more than averagely competent when it comes to a bit of this nadgery stuff like we're on here. But beyond that, as I say, proper off-roaders are into much lighter, much smaller, lower capacity machines for obvious reasons. But yeah, 99 times out of 100, these bikes are going to be used for touring, aren't they? And what a consummate, comfortable tourer this would be. More than enough power, 95 brake horsepower. And once you wind up those revs beyond about sort of 5,000, the power's all there to get you out of most situations where you might need power. Well, that was serendipitous. I was just mentioning that you don't see many Saab 95s these days, and the chap stopped, reversed back, and I'll include that conversation. Hey, a subscriber right up here in the middle of nowhere, and a subscriber, and he's a Moto Guzzi owner, Moto Guzzi rider. V85 TT and one of the older Stelvios, he tells me, and something else. Any road up, where were I? Yeah, if you go for the sport version of this, the more road focused version of this, currently at Apple Yards, you get basically the same bike, but with a full set of hard luggage for £8,500. So if you're in the market for an omni-competent adventure tourer motorcycle and your budget's about £8,500 and you want the luggage, so you want a bike that's ready to rock and roll and do big distances, you best get yourself to Appleyard's PDQ, because that bike, which is the 2022 model but which is still absolutely brand new, that bike is up for £8,500 with a full set, 3 hard cases, and the top quality cases. Let me tell you, I was looking at them early today, the top sort of Touratech quality cases on that bike. It's not a blue one, it's sort of grey and black, but it's a cracking looking bike. So yeah, if you're in the market for a midweight adventure bike, then this has got to be on your list, frankly. This bike, £9,500, and with the luggage about 10.5, give or take. Then there's an absolute top of the range one, apparently £12,000 with absolutely everything. But this has got more than enough for me. I'd be absolutely, you know, I can't say that I'm a dyed-in-the-wool adventure bike fan, but I am an adventure bike fan. I do like them, and I like these sort of mid-range, medium-sized adventure bikes more than ever I would the bigger ones. So yeah, so the competition, I suppose, yeah, is the Honda Transalp, the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE, and I suppose the other Chinese bike, the Benelli TRK 702. And there isn't much between this bike and that Benelli that I took out. They're both cracking looking bikes, and they're both very, very capable bikes. What I would say is, I think this bike was earlier to the party than the Benelli, and it's slightly more refined in one or two areas. For example, the TFT and one or two other bits and bats, and the fact that it's got cruise control and a quick shifter and all of that. So it's an order of magnitude evolved from the Benelli is this, but also a bit more expensive. But the fit and finish, the build quality, I can't fault it at all. This is on a par, I would sort of say, with my Super Meteor 650. That sort of build quality, not absolute top end, hewn from solid steel premium, but very, very close indeed, and more than enough to see many, many miles out in complete confidence. Right, get yourself up to Appleyards in Keighley. A fabulous amount of stock, which obviously includes these CF Moto 800s, both the touring and sports versions, along with plenty of other bikes. So yeah, thanks very much to Appleyards. Thanks in particular to Kevin, the big boss, to Mikey, the sales manager, Jason, the service manager, and of course to Kieran, who looks after me. Thank you, Kieran, for sorting this bike out for me today. So that's it, until the next time, and in the meantime, ride safe, be kind, and I'll catch you soon. I'll see thee. Saab 9.5, don't see many of them. Don't you reverse over my camera.
Hello.
Now then.
You don't know me, but I recognise you.
Ah! I was just saying to the camera, I'll let this car past.
Right.
And then when I saw you start, I said, I think it's coming back to run my camera over.
All right, no, I subscribe to your channel, it's really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. What's your name?
Mark Anderson.
Mark.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. What do you ride?
Motor Gutsies, I've got
Oh.
95 and a Stelvio. And an old BSA.
The new Stelvio?
No.
The older one? I think the older one's better looking.
Well, you know, there's a school of thought both ways.
No,
Sat on the new one, it seems quite good. So
yeah?
I can't afford it yet.
Yeah.
But,
No, yeah, well I have the V7 obviously, but I do like the V85 TT.
yeah.
So I'm hoping to get a test ride on one of those in due course.
Right.
But yes, this one will go out Sunday morning hopefully.
Right, okay, yeah. What is that?
CF Moto 800 MT.
All right, okay, yeah.
So it's the KTM engine.
Very good.
It's a cracking bike. I can't really fault it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Apart from this has happened.
Oh, that's very good.
No, but we'll cope with that. But yeah, it's beautiful. Can't really go wrong for £9.5 grand.
Looks really good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a cracker.
Anyway, I just thought, I recognised you, I thought I'd stop and say hello.
God bless you. Thank you.
Right.
You take care.
And I'll keep subscribing, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All the best. Bye-bye.